And guess who's right there next after them? It's Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham has just leapfrogged Luka Dončić for his top 5 players in the NBA in my eyes.
Kendrick Perkins and Luka Dončić nearly had a serious blow-up during All-Star Weekend, and the situation behind the scenes sounds a lot messier than most reports are letting on. People who were close to the moment say things got heated fast when Perkins tried to confront Luka in a hallway. Voices were raised, tension shot through the roof, and security had to step in before things turned into a full scene. What makes this situation even wilder is that it did not start that day. This tension had been building for a while. Perkins has been taking shots at Luka publicly for months. He has called him out about his conditioning, joked about his weight, and even claimed that Cade Cunningham is the better player right now. That kind of talk does not stay quiet in the league. Players hear everything, and eventually somebody responds. And Luka did respond. Not with a long rant, not with a social media meltdown, but in a way that instantly made the situation explode. Once Luka pushed back, other players started paying attention. And suddenly, this was not just one disagreement anymore. The whole thing started pulling more names into the conversation. And if the tension keeps rising, it could reveal a lot more drama than anyone expected. Now ask yourself something. Have you ever watched someone try so hard to stay in the spotlight that it becomes uncomfortable to witness? That is exactly how some people around the league are describing Kendrick Perkins right now in 2026. His analyst career has always been built on loud opinions, bold statements, and controversial takes designed to keep attention locked on him. That formula works on TV. But what happened during All-Star Weekend in Los Angeles took things to another level. According to people who were there, this moment felt less like a casual conversation and more like a setup waiting to happen. All-Star Weekend is usually the one time players relax, reconnect with friends from other teams, and enjoy the event without the pressure of the season. But instead of keeping things light, Perkins reportedly positioned himself near the player areas where he normally would not be hanging around. Witnesses say he lingered close to the player lounge, watching the hallway traffic like he was waiting for the right moment. Then Luka Dončić walked through. And just like that, the tension began. Luka is usually known for staying cool in those moments. He has that calm confidence where he can drop a massive stat line and still keep a relaxed smile. But Perkins has been talking about Luka's conditioning and behavior for years, so this was not just a random encounter. According to people nearby, Perkins stepped directly into Luka's path and started talking immediately. There was no friendly greeting, no casual conversation, just blunt criticism right there in the hallway. Witnesses say Perkins started calling Luka out about his conditioning and accusing him of complaining too much when calls did not go his way. He even suggested Luka needed to stop the dramatic reactions on the court and focus on playing the game. Now picture that moment. Luka Dončić is one of the biggest stars in basketball, a player who fills arenas and dominates headlines across the world. Then you have a former player who built his reputation as a defensive role player, stepping in front of him and challenging him in front of other athletes. At first, Luka did what he usually does. He gave that cold smirk and tried to move past the situation like it was not worth the energy. But Perkins kept pushing. The louder the conversation got, the more attention it pulled from people nearby. Suddenly, it felt less like a quick exchange and more like someone trying to make a moment. That is when Luka stopped walking. He turned back toward Perkins, grabbed the front of his suit, and the entire hallway froze. The mood flipped instantly. Two big personalities standing face to face while people around them tried to figure out what would happen next. For a brief moment, it looked like things could spiral out of control. Security rushed in quickly and separated the two before anything went further. The tension cooled down fast once staff stepped in, but the scene had already drawn plenty of attention. What happened next might be the most telling part of the entire story. Instead of letting the moment fade, Perkins continued talking about Luka publicly afterward. During the February 20th, 2026 episode of the Road Trippin' podcast, Perkins looked straight into the camera and doubled down on his opinion about Luka and Cade Cunningham. Now, to be fair, Cade Cunningham has been having an incredible season in Detroit. The Pistons have been winning games, and Cade has been playing a confident style of basketball that fans and analysts love to see. He is leading the team, making smart decisions, and showing the kind of leadership that people respect. And yes, there have been moments where Luka frustrates people watching the game. Sometimes he holds the ball late in the shot clock, sometimes he gets caught arguing with officials while the play keeps moving. Fans notice those things and the internet always turns them into memes. But even with all that discussion, the real question remains. Are we seriously pretending Cade Cunningham and Luka Dončić are operating in the same tier of superstardom right now? That is the argument that turned a heated debate into a full-blown league conversation, and once that door opened, the drama only got louder. Perk's entire argument basically comes down to one thing. He keeps saying Cade plays both sides of the floor, offense and defense, as if that alone settles the debate. It is the classic move analysts pull when they do not have real numbers to back up the claim. They just say defense and expect everyone to nod along. But think about that logic for a second. Saying Cade is better than Luka because of defense is like saying someone who cooks a decent steak is better than a Michelin star chef, just because the chef does not enjoy washing dishes. The comparison falls apart the moment you actually look at the resumes. Let's slow this down and look at the facts. Luka Dončić is a 5-time All-NBA first-team selection. He has been the Western Conference Finals MVP. He regularly averages over 30 points in the playoffs, like it is just another casual workout session. Luka has delivered 40-point playoff performances so many times that fans barely react anymore because they expect it. His usage numbers are ridiculous. We are talking about offensive responsibility that almost no player in league history has carried while still producing elite efficiency. Luka runs the entire offense, creates shots for everyone, and still finds a way to dominate the scoreboard like it is routine.
Don't do it like that, Perk. Yeah. I want that to rim.
Luka Dončić is the worst defensive star that we've seen in the modern era of basketball. Period.
Now look at Cade Cunningham. Cade is a fantastic young player, and what he is doing for Detroit deserves respect. Nobody is denying his talent or his growth. The Pistons are finally winning games, and Cade has clearly taken a leadership role on that roster. But Cade's playoff experience is still extremely limited. His biggest playoff moment so far came in the 2025 series where Detroit exited early after 4 games. During that stretch, he shot 42% from the field and averaged over 5 turnovers per game. That is not an insult. That is just where his career currently stands. Cade is still building his foundation. Luka, meanwhile, is already living in the penthouse of NBA superstardom. The difference between those two stages is enormous, and pretending they are identical right now simply ignores reality. That is why Perkins' comments raised so many eyebrows. When he placed Cade right alongside players like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Nikola Jokic while leaving Luka out of that group, it felt intentional. It sounded less like analysis and more like an attempt to push Luka outside the circle of elite players. And the reasoning did not really help the argument either. Perkins pointed to Detroit's team success as proof that Cade plays winning basketball. But anyone who watches the Pistons knows their improvement comes from multiple factors. The roster has strong depth, the coaching staff has created structure, and several players have stepped forward. Trying to frame that team progress as evidence that Luka's individual brilliance is somehow a weakness does not make much sense. Luka's style has always revolved around carrying massive offensive responsibility while elevating teammates through playmaking. The timing of Perkins' comments also raised questions. He made those statements on February 20th, right as Luka was returning to action after dealing with an injury. That meant the conversation immediately shifted away from Luka's return and toward the controversy Perkins created. And he did not just compare stats. Perkins even praised Cade by saying he carries a Kobe Bryant hard hat mentality, suggesting Cade brings a workmanlike toughness every night. At the same time, the tone of the discussion implied Luka is more focused on entertaining than grinding. To many fans and players, that sounded like a deliberate narrative push. People around the league could see exactly what was happening, and that is why the reaction was so strong once Luka finally responded. Because if Perkins thought those comments would float around without any pushback, he clearly forgot who he was talking about. Imagine being stopped in a hallway by someone telling you that you are not working hard enough, especially when your career numbers are rewriting record books. At first, many expected Luka to ignore it. He often carries a relaxed personality, joking with teammates and brushing off criticism with a smile. But the 2026 version of Luka appears different. He seems less interested in letting constant criticism slide. According to people connected to the Lakers organization, Luka's reaction behind the scenes was blunt and direct. Sources claim his response to Perkins' comments was, "Who is this meat writer trying to come at me? He had a mediocre career and should not criticize me." That quote immediately spread across basketball circles because it captured exactly how frustrated Luka felt. Whether people agreed with his tone or not, it showed that he was no longer willing to stay quiet when someone questioned his work ethic or his standing in the league. And that response opened up a bigger conversation about modern sports media. Many fans believe the debate shows and podcasts have shifted away from real analysis and toward attention-grabbing arguments designed to spark reactions. The pattern has become easy to spot. The louder the take, the more attention it gets. The more dramatic the claim, the more clips spread across social media. Suddenly, analysts are rewarded for saying the most outrageous thing possible. Perkins understands that environment very well. Every time he criticizes Luka, the internet explodes with reactions. The clips spread across TikTok, Twitter lights up, and the conversation dominates basketball discussions for days. That cycle creates attention, and attention keeps personalities visible in a crowded media landscape. But it also raises an uncomfortable question. Are some analysts chasing engagement more than accuracy? Because once you actually compare the careers, the gap is obvious. Luka Dončić was the EuroLeague MVP at just 18 years old. While most teenagers were worrying about school assignments, Luka was dominating the second-best basketball league on the planet. He entered the NBA and immediately became Rookie of the Year. Since then, he has evolved into one of the most unstoppable offensive engines the league has ever seen. Right now, he is leading the league in scoring at over 30 points per game. His career averages sit close to 29 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists. He has delivered 60-point triple-doubles, unforgettable playoff performances, and season after season of all-NBA dominance. That kind of production puts him in historic territory. It is the type of resume that most players spend entire careers trying to approach. Meanwhile, Kendrick Perkins built his career as a tough role player who contributed to team success in a supporting role. He was never the primary option, never an all-star selection, and never a candidate in MVP conversations. So when those two worlds collide, the debate becomes less about statistics and more about perception. And that perception battle is exactly what turned a simple disagreement into one of the most talked about NBA stories of the year. This whole situation is a reminder of something simple. While Kendrick Perkins is busy chasing viral moments and loud headlines, Luka Dončić is chasing something much bigger. He is chasing the kind of legacy built by legends like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. That is why a lot of fans struggle to take criticism seriously when it comes from someone whose role in the league looked completely different. It becomes difficult to accept lessons about greatness from a player who was rarely the centerpiece of the teams he played for. Take Oklahoma City, for example. During that era, Perkins was not exactly the engine that powered the team forward. Many fans remember stretches where the lineup looked stronger the moment rotations changed and other players stepped into bigger roles. Then there was the 2012 Finals matchup against Miami. The Heat offense moved quickly, stretched the floor, and forced defenders into difficult situations. At times, the matchup exposed slower defensive coverage in the paint, and critics still bring up those moments when discussing Perkins's overall impact during that series. Fast forward a few years to Cleveland in 2015, and his role looked very different again. By that stage of his career, he was more of a veteran presence than a central player in the action. The Cavaliers already had LeBron James leading the charge, and Perkins mainly served as a supporting locker room figure while the stars carried the load on the court. Because of that contrast, some fans believe it feels strange hearing harsh criticism aimed at a superstar who is currently dominating the league. There is a clear difference between constructive analysis and personal confrontation. That distinction is part of why the hallway moment during All-Star Weekend raised eyebrows across the league. Talking about a player's performance during a broadcast is one thing. Walking up to a player in person and calling out their conditioning crosses into a completely different territory. People around the league have been quietly saying the same thing. Players in 2026 are not intimidated by media personalities the way earlier generations sometimes were. Athletes today control their own platforms, speak directly to fans, and respond publicly when they feel disrespected. But what makes this situation even more interesting is that it does not appear to be just one disagreement or a single heated exchange. Many fans have started noticing a pattern in the way Perkins talks about Luka. The criticism has been consistent for years. Comment after comment questioning Luka's conditioning, his leadership, his attitude, and even his body language on the court. When you line up those comments chronologically, it begins to look less like random analysis and more like a running narrative that keeps getting repeated. Let's go back to last May for a moment. After a tough playoff exit involving the Lakers, many analysts were discussing roster depth and coaching adjustments. Those were the main basketball topics surrounding the team at the time. But during a podcast appearance, Perkins shifted the focus in a completely different direction. Instead of discussing the broader team issues, he delivered one of the most shocking comparisons fans had heard in a while. He argued that Luka ranked below several players in terms of overall impact, including comparisons that immediately sparked debate across the basketball world. Even people on the same podcast looked surprised by the statement because it felt disconnected from the numbers most analysts rely on. At the time, Luka was dealing with physical setbacks and carrying one of the heaviest offensive workloads in the league. His usage rate was massive, and the offense revolved almost entirely around his decision-making. Yet the conversation was not about those circumstances. Instead, it became another headline focused on criticism. Then there was the conversation about Luka's conditioning. Before the 2025 season, when Luka arrived to training camp noticeably leaner and stronger, Perkins had spent multiple seasons commenting on Luka's shape and fitness level. Those remarks turned into running jokes online. Memes spread everywhere, and phrases mocking Luka's conditioning became part of the basketball internet culture. Ironically, once Luka showed up in peak shape, the discussion did not really stop. The focus simply shifted to other angles like body language and leadership style. That topic became one of Perkins' favorite talking points. During several television segments, he spoke about Luka needing to adjust his on-court demeanor and show stronger leadership through his reactions during games. Fans found that commentary interesting because leadership comes in many different forms. Some players lead through intensity, others through calm confidence, and some simply through performance. Luka's leadership style has always been built around production. When a player is creating offense, scoring at elite levels, and setting up teammates constantly, the impact speaks loudly on its own. What is also interesting is how other analysts on television sometimes react during those debates. Viewers have noticed moments where fellow panelists pause, exchange looks, or quietly challenge the argument before moving the conversation back toward statistics and strategy. Those small reactions suggest the basketball media landscape is not completely unified when it comes to evaluating Luka's career.
They got some young fellas in Europe that's ready to come and take a motherfucking lunch money. So again, don't put your kid in that position.
Serge Ibaka, he say he 18, but you know, Africans be lying.
And that is where the story becomes even more intriguing. When you examine the list of players Perkins has criticized most often, some fans believe there is a pattern forming. Several of the athletes who received the most criticism happen to be rising superstars reshaping the league's future. That observation has led some viewers to ask an interesting question. Did the tone of the conversation change after Luka arrived in Los Angeles wearing purple and gold? Since that moment, the level of attention surrounding him has only grown louder. Every performance, every quote, every headline carries massive weight in the basketball world. So when analysts raise their voices about Luka, the reaction spreads instantly across social media and sports television. That leads to the final question many fans are asking right now. Is this purely basketball analysis, or is it part of a bigger battle over legacy, influence, and who gets to sit at the top of the NBA conversation moving forward? The part that really makes people shake their heads is the hypocrisy surrounding this entire debate. Kendrick Perkins will go on television and spend long stretches criticizing Luka Dončić, saying Luka complains too much about calls and spends too much time reacting to referees instead of getting back on defense. But then in the next segment, he will praise Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as a revolutionary offensive player. That contrast has a lot of fans raising their eyebrows because the numbers tell a slightly different story. This season, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been averaging around 12.2 free throw attempts per game, which is actually higher than Luka's 11.6 attempts. Both players attack the rim constantly, both draw contact, and both understand how to use their skill to earn trips to the line. Yet somehow the narrative ends up completely different. When Shai does it, some analysts describe it as smart scoring and elite skill. When Luka does something similar, the conversation suddenly turns into accusations of manipulation or gamesmanship. That inconsistency is what fuels the frustration among fans watching these debates unfold. If two players are producing similar outcomes statistically, it becomes difficult to understand why the tone of the conversation changes so dramatically. Some viewers have even started asking whether the commentary sometimes reflects broader narratives about the league rather than purely basketball analysis. Over the past few years, the NBA has seen an explosion of international talent reaching the very top of the sport. Players like Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Dončić, and others have reshaped the league's power structure. Superstars are now coming from every corner of the world, and that shift has sparked a lot of discussion about how the global game is evolving. Perkins himself has spoken openly about that trend. During several podcast appearances, he talked about American players needing to protect their place in the league as more international stars rise to the top. Those comments stirred debate because some listeners felt the conversation was drifting away from basketball performance and into something broader about identity and representation in the sport. That controversy is not new either. Fans still remember the debate surrounding the MVP race a few seasons ago when Nikola Jokic was dominating statistically. During that time, Perkins suggested the voting history raised questions about bias in the award process. The statement triggered huge reactions across the basketball world because it introduced a sensitive topic into what had previously been a conversation about numbers, efficiency, and impact. Since then, every time Perkins targets another international superstar, fans bring up that earlier moment as part of a larger pattern. First, the comments about Jokic, then discussions about Joel Embiid's approach to competition, and now the ongoing criticism directed at Luka Dončić. Supporters of Luka believe the pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. They argue that the commentary often focuses more on personality or background than on the actual production happening on the court. Meanwhile, Luka continues to deliver historic numbers while leading one of the league's most recognizable teams. That combination naturally draws massive attention and creates intense debate across sports media. But the story becomes even more complicated when you look at how quickly opinions sometimes shift in the media cycle. A perfect example came during the summer of 2025, when Luka arrived in Los Angeles looking noticeably leaner and stronger. Those photos spread across social media instantly. Suddenly, every sports show was discussing Luka's conditioning and commitment to improvement. Perkins himself joined that wave of praise. During multiple television appearances, he applauded Luka for taking accountability and showing the dedication expected from a superstar. At one point, he even predicted Luka would become a leading candidate for the 2026 MVP award. For a while, the narrative looked completely different. Luka was being celebrated as a player entering the prime of his career with a renewed focus. But sports media moves quickly, and narratives can change overnight. When the Lakers hit a defensive slump in December 2025, the tone of the conversation shifted dramatically. Instead of focusing only on team adjustments or roster balance, the criticism suddenly turned directly toward Luka again. Perkins went from praising his commitment to questioning his effort during games. During one segment, he joked that the Lakers' defense looked like it could not stop cars at a school crosswalk, a line that spread quickly across sports clips and social media. To many fans, it felt like the entire narrative had flipped in a matter of weeks. The same player who had been praised as an MVP candidate was suddenly being portrayed as the central problem. That constant shift is what critics call the Perkins formula. Praise when the story is positive, then pivot hard when controversy generates more attention. The pattern does not stop with Luka either. Several players over the years have publicly pushed back against Perkins' commentary. One example often mentioned by fans involves Serge Ibaka. Back in late 2022, Perkins suggested that Ibaka might have been older than his listed age during their time as teammates in Oklahoma City. The remark created immediate backlash because it questioned a player's credibility without clear evidence. Ibaka responded publicly and challenged the claim, pointing out that internal team matters should never be turned into public talking points. That moment strengthened the perception among some players that media personalities sometimes cross a line between commentary and personal accusations, which brings the conversation right back to the Luka situation. Players around the league are paying attention to how these debates unfold, and many of them are less willing than ever to stay silent when they feel narratives are unfair. So the question fans keep asking is simple. Are these comments genuine basketball analysis, or are they part of a bigger media strategy designed to keep the spotlight on controversy? The criticism surrounding Kendrick Perkins does not stop with Luka Dončić. Over the years, several former teammates have publicly questioned his credibility, and that history is one reason many fans view his commentary with skepticism today. One example often mentioned involves Serge Ibaka. During a heated exchange a few years ago, Ibaka suggested that Perkins built part of his media reputation by sharing negative stories about former teammates once he moved into television. Ibaka's comments sparked debate because they touched on an unwritten rule inside locker rooms. Players are expected to keep certain conversations private. According to Ibaka, Perkins sometimes spoke critically about stars like Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook after tough games, even though he had shared a locker room with them during Oklahoma City's most competitive seasons. Those claims created a perception among some players that Perkins might be too willing to turn private moments into public talking points. That reputation matters in today's NBA environment. Players communicate constantly, and word spreads quickly when someone is viewed as breaking the locker room code. Trust is everything in professional sports, especially among teammates who have spent years competing together. Because of that history, critics argue that Perkins' current comments about Luka feel less like basketball analysis and more like another chapter in a long pattern of sharp criticism aimed at star players. Supporters of Luka see the situation differently. They believe Luka represents the kind of generational talent that reshapes the league. His scoring ability, court vision, and leadership have already placed him in conversations with some of the most dominant players of the modern era. From that perspective, constant attacks on his body language or personality feel misplaced when the on-court results remain historic. Luka continues to produce elite numbers, lead offenses at a high level, and deliver performances that keep his teams competitive deep into the season. That contrast is why debates around Perkins often become so heated. For some viewers, he represents the loud, dramatic side of sports media that thrives on controversy and strong opinions. For others, he is simply doing what analysts are paid to do, creating debate and challenging popular narratives in order to keep the conversation around the sport alive. But regardless of which side someone takes, one thing is clear. The relationship between NBA players and media personalities has changed dramatically in recent years. Athletes today have direct platforms through social media, podcasts, and interviews where they can respond instantly to criticism. That means analysts no longer control the narrative the way they once did. So the next time a heated television debate appears about Luka's leadership or attitude, many fans are remembering one important thing. In the modern NBA, the conversation does not end when the cameras turn off. Players, fans, and analysts are all part of the same ongoing dialogue.